Hi, it's Andy.
Hi, it's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Welcome to the A.D.K. Rock and Metal channel. Okay, so today we are doing an album review for the new album Osmium from the band Caregah. Kirk, have you got the date when this comes out? Because I forgot to write this on my notes.
Yeah, it's a self-release and it comes out on Friday, the 6th of October. This is a Swedish quartet. Nowadays, I think they use the moniker groove metal. We remember them when they were more of a sludge type band when we first discovered them 18 months ago. But yeah, I would say they probably are a groove metal band now, aren't
they? They're kind of groove doom, I'd say.
Groove doom.
They are groove doom.
Sounds great.
There is a lot of doom in there. There's a lot of doom in their sound. But before we start and go through, we're going to do a track by track breakdown. But I am curious if you were to have if they were like on the like on a book or on a movie, they always have like a little quote from like a publication. What would be your individual quote, single sentence, single word that for you summed up this album? Andy, got any ideas? Anything from you? Don't know. I've lost them. Sorry, no, I missed you there. It all froze on the screen there. So what was your quote? Sorry.
Didn't freeze. As me leaving thoughts. I've got this on the brief tagline. Yeah, just simple headbanging chuggy riffs.
Yeah. See, mine is simple. Chugtastic. That to me is what this album is. It's a chugtastic experience.
Chug.
It's the plenty of chug, yeah. Kirk, any kind of thing from you on this one?
Heavy metal for a hard rock audience, really, isn't it?
Okay.
That's what I would say it is. Or you could say the opposite. It's hard rock for a heavy metal audience.
Yeah. Well, let's check out. Let's do track by track. So, Forever Merciless was the first track on the album. This was their last, was it the last single that we reviewed of theirs? It was the last music video. That was the one where they played in the quarry, if I remember.
I think it was the penultimate video we did by these, wasn't it? It's the single. Yeah, it's a great song, this one, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It is. So kind of initial thoughts. Andy, what did you reckon of Forever Merciless?
I mean, it's a great one to choose for the album opener. It's, just to repeat my tagline, it's simple, chuggy riffs. It's got the accessibility and catchiness of Tom Hawk, I think. The first song we ever covered by this band. Very similar feel to the song as that. And I put this on in my van driving along. I had a big smile on my face. I was headbanging away. I was riffing on the steering. That's what this opening song did for me.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much the same for me. I just wrote my notes here. Chug metal, thundering double kick, 4/4 beat, great weighty vocals. This song really reminded me of Entombed. I started thinking back to when we did that reaction to Wolverine Blues, and I was like, yeah, I'm getting that kind of Wolverine Blues, simple down-picking vibe. Also bands like, I know this band comes through a lot throughout here. Down really reminds me a lot of Down, this band does. Band called Floodgate, another reference point if you haven't heard of the band Floodgate, and Crowbar was another reference point I would use for this band.
Crowbar for me as well, that opening track. Yeah, I forgot to say that. Definitely
great vocals. I think it's Marcus is the vocalist.
Marcus.
I remember. I love his vocals because you've got such weight, such depth, but there's such clarity as well. You can clearly hear every word he's singing, but it sounds so weighty and so heavy. So I love that. Kirk, what's your thoughts on it?
I also noted down Entombed. You're right. I think that is the main influence on this song. And I agree, Marcus, the vocals, there's a real comfortable masculine brilliance to these vocals. And again, the key word, we're going to use this throughout to describe the phonation of his voice, clarity. You can hear what he's saying, can't you, as well? Fantastic singer. He could even, if you were to listen to this a cappella, it would still be quite powerful, wouldn't it? It's got such a presence. But the riffs are fantastic here, aren't they? You can also hear the bass grinding away in the background. Everything is down-tuned and turned up, isn't it? And they really do, like you say, love that down-picking palm muted technique on the guitars. And when I hear that, instantly gets my attention. Like when we listen to our friends in Lowdown, they're just irresistible, those riffs, aren't they? Soon as you hear it, you just stop what you're doing and you've got to see it through to the end. And any band that's capable of doing that, clearly doing something right. Really love that start-stop syncopation in the middle eight as well.
Yeah.
This is just music that would be awesome live, but put it through your headphones as well, just listening to it on your own, equally as enjoyable. Yeah, great start to the album.
Okay. Second track in was a song called Steel. Andy, what was your thoughts on it?
Didn't have quite the same impact as Forever Merciless, to be honest. I've not noted much down about this other than it's sort of a chuggy riff. But we'll go on to say one of my overall thoughts on the whole album is this batch of songs being played live would be absolutely fantastic. What a great night you'd have watching this band live. Just you couldn't help but into it, I think, you know. And Kirk, you mentioned about your tagline was it something like "This is a metal album for rock fans"?
Yeah,
that's what I've done as an overall sort of review of it. You could introduce this to your fan, your rock loving. We go a bit heavy. I want to be a bit more groovy, a bit more heavy metal. This is sort of album you could introduce to them, and I'm sure that, you know, they'd like it. It's got a great appeal.
Yeah. I mean, I listened to Steel, and I was probably the same as you after Forever Merciless. It didn't have quite the same impact on me. Had a bit more of a bounce to the track, which I quite liked. It was a little bit more like Black Label Society on this particular song. I did feel like the guitar melody on this got lost behind the thundering drums, which I felt was a bit of a shame, because it didn't really punch through as much for me. Good catchy chorus. Nice driving music. It had an interesting midsection, like almost like a real kind of blues groove thing, which is definitely for me is my sort of thing, but might catch a few people out that are kind of not really into that kind of bluesy vibe, that were kind of wanted it to be a bit more pure metal. So I think that might have caught a few people out, but I really liked it. Worked for me, and it had a great classic metal solo in it, so I enjoyed that side of it. Kirk?
Important to acknowledge the influence of progressive blues on heavy metal. Black Sabbath being, if we acknowledge them, the kings of this, who really started the genre. So yeah, so far my note taking seems to be identical to yours, Dave.
Okay.
Black Label Society on steroids. I picked up on that, and also that middle eight. Yeah, it's a bit Black Sabbath, the way that they do that. But what really impressed me after they run through the third rendition of the chorus is the way that they deliberately position the song so that they can end it with this really heavy palm muted riff that's just for people to swing their heads along to, isn't it? They really play into the audience there. And I think if you are in any doubt that, oh, this might be a heavy version of Guns N' Roses, no. This is basically a rock version of Machine Head, isn't it? They're coming at it from that angle. Accessible. Yeah, I think when you said nice, Dave, clearly you didn't mean gleaming white teeth and shaking hands and patting each other on the back. You meant it's got when you're driving in the car, it's got a good momentum, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's sort of sat in that middle ground for me. It was like, it's nice, it ain't great. It's nice, it ain't bad. It just, yeah, it was right. I didn't feel one way or another too much about it. There was parts of it I really liked the track, but there was that thing about Forever Merciless that grabs you, and you're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get that listening to this. I didn't go, fuck yeah, this is cool. I was listening to go, I started analysing it more. I didn't connect with it emotionally the way I did with Forever Merciless. That was something almost like, what was it, primordial, they say. Like, in Forever Merciless, there was that instinct takes over that made you start to bang your head. Steel didn't do that to me. Steel made me go listen to it and go, okay, that's nice, that's pretty cool, quite like that. So I didn't get an emotional reaction to it that I did with the first one.
I thought they did a good job of continuing the momentum, so that's one area of disagreement between us two, isn't it? And also Marcus's vocals are a bit more grisly on this.
Yeah, they were actually.
He's really tossing in a few more extreme techniques, isn't it? So that really, that really did have the desired impact on me. So I did enjoy Steel.
Okay. Track number 3, Revenge. Andy, what are your thoughts?
Steal your line, Dave. Again, this one didn't grab me and say "fuck yeah" like Forever Merciless. And until it got to the sort of Pantera-esque chuggy open riff with the squeals, which I'm pleased to say, reprised 3 more times. That is awesome. That's a standout for me, that particular album. I mean, it's so simple, but it's just, again, stealing one of your lines, primordial, just grabs you, makes you want to bang your head, makes you want to say, yeah, this is good. This is metal. This is enjoyable.
Yeah.
This is the sort of stuff I want to listen to.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in a similar sort of mindset of you on this one. So I wrote down here slow and sludgy, but with a really fast chugging riff coming in. And I loved that. That start up, that build up. And it had a really nice build up into an okay riff. I thought it could have gone bigger. I thought that build up was going to launch into something that was going to kick off. And it kind of went into a fairly standard chug along riff. And I was like, oh, there's a bit of a lost opportunity there. That could have gone absolutely huge. It almost went kind of hard rock at that point for me. It wasn't feeling as metal as what we'd had a nice solo, but then what we got was this midsection breakdown, which was so weighty, it really got my neck muscles working at that point. To me, that could have been the main riff of the song. If that had been the main riff of the song, I'd have been like full emotional connection, banging my head, going crazy. And it was great that they had that at that mid part onwards. And maybe you needed the section before it to make that midsection do what it did. But I don't know. In my mindset, I also think about what I'm like with track jumping and knowing what that intro did and how it didn't really kind of kick off somewhere. If I didn't know that, I probably would have skipped it at that point and not got as far as that midsection on the song. And I think that's where that Revenge didn't quite work as well. There's some really nice parts of it. There was just that middle, that main riff is just an okay riff for me. But I really love the intro and I love that midsection weighty breakdown bit and squeals. They were freaking awesome. Kirk?
Yeah, they combine morbid doom metal with a fierce metallic edge on this, don't they?
Mm.
See, I enjoyed it because I have to say probably the best rock album of all time to me is Alice in Chains' Dirt, that 1992 record. The guitar work is stunning on that. And it reminded me of a song on that album called Hate to Feel. So that second riff, you're right, it almost drags you away, doesn't it, from the adrenaline of the first one. I'm used to that when I listen to that Alice in Chains album, so that didn't really alienate me. But you're right, I think Johan, the guitar player, is conscious of this and he seems a bit impatient to want to accelerate the tempo again, doesn't he? Even though he's written that riff, you can tell he wants to modulate to a faster section after that. What I did like on this, though, I think you can hear the songwriting foundations of Johan and Marcus, where he probably got sat down with a guitar. Marcus has come up with the vocal phrasing and they've really made it work. So to me, I enjoyed it because I felt that I could pry into some of the secrets of how they've created this song. I might be wrong, and I'm sure the boys in Caregah can correct us on that if it's not the case. But yeah, I think you can really see the foundations of this song just by listening to the vocals and guitar.
Okay. Next up was Tombstone. Andy.
This is the rock ballad, isn't it? This one, you can imagine it lighters out.
Yeah.
And then it's got the inevitable sort of full band joining in the second half. I'm just trying something a little bit different, sort of breaking it up after three sort of heavy, doomy, sludgy songs. I'm just trying something a bit different to sort of, going in a slightly different direction. Probably one I would skip if I had the album, to be honest. It's sort of, it's a decent enough song, but it's a rock track, isn't it? And not really what I was expecting.
Okay. It's interesting, because I kind of picked up a lot of those same similar points. So I wrote it down here. It's a classic power ballad at the midpoint of an album, which is a staple of the 80s and 90s metal bands. That's what you all did halfway through your album, 4 or 5 songs in, you whack in your power ballad.
And it's tongue-in-cheek reference, then. You think it would be a bit sort of satirical?
I don't know if it's a planned that way. I really liked the track. Like, I did really like it, but it was just interesting where they placed it on the album, because it's also, if you think back to those sort of 80s and 90s, they would always do the hard rock single first, and then they would do the power ballad would be the one. So you do your hard rock song, which is to get your guys, followers, and then you do your power ballad to get the chicks. Now, I'm kind of glad that Caregah had not released this as a single, because then it would have been a bit too cheesy of going down that same route. Although this could easily be a single, in my opinion. I thought the vocals on this were outstanding. It was a very emotional delivery from Marcus on here. And if it wasn't for the fact that this was on this album, I would not have guessed this was Caregah. There is no way on earth that if this had been played to me without me having any reference to it, I'd have gone, oh yeah, that's Caregah, because there are none of the staples that we've heard on any of the other tracks. The vocal delivery, the guitar playing, it's a completely different vibe. So it's almost like they've just gone off and decided very specifically to write something that is not sounding like anything else on the album. I love the atmosphere, the keyboards, the keyboard strings, the vocal harmonies. I mean, it is very typical for a power ballad. I've cast it. It's the Ron Seal of a song. It does exactly what it says on the tin. For me, easy repeat listen. I could easily listen to this because it's my kind of thing. So yeah, I was happy with Tombstone. Kirk.
It still took me by surprise. I think it's the right place to put it on an 8-track album at number 4. Almost like the Cemetery Gates moment on Pantera's Cowboys from Hell. It's nowhere near as good as Cemetery Gates, though. I think we need to be clear about that. You're right, though. Marcus took me by surprise. This guy, his vocal range is superb. And when we interviewed him, I think he's self-taught, isn't he? He didn't have any lessons, but you would think that this person is a professional singer, that he does this for a living and has students and teaches them how to hone their techniques. I actually heard Stone Temple Pilots in this.
Oh, yeah.
As a big influence, especially, I think Johan will take this as a compliment, because the DeLeo brothers from that band are superb musicians. They really are top songwriters. And I remember my friend's dad used to have a 12-string guitar with nylon strings. And the way he was playing those chords at the beginning, it sounded like he was playing something similar, you know, that nylon resonance. So it's rare you hear that in music. That always gets my attention. Another comparison, that Alice in Chains EP, Jar of Flies, is something as well that it's coming from. I don't know if they are the main influences, but they're the obvious references for people who are listening to this and want to understand what it sounds like. This song probably goes on a bit too long, but I did like that progressive blues solo towards the end. You know, though, after this song, don't you, that the next one is just going to be a banger. This band are too clever. They're not just going to they're not going to squander the momentum. So I wasn't worried when it came to the end of this, and I appreciate them trying to do something different.
Yeah. So the next song was Terrorized, which was the first single we saw off of this album. Because this was the first one we saw after Tomahawk. Andy.
Yeah, Kirk's absolutely right. This one is a banger and probably my favourite. Did either of you pick up on, or when you heard the opening, did you think like yourself, oh, that's very much like Friends of the Channel for the Sirens?
Similar, yeah.
You know, it's just me.
No,
it sounded very much something off their latest EP. Just very first came to my mind. But it certainly is, the best track. And I think, you both mentioned Marcus's vocals on the previous track, Tombstone, being excellent. I think he takes it to another level on this particular track. He extends his range, and it's, as I say, probably my favourite of the whole album.
Okay. I'm going to go very simple on this one. So as I said, it's another single off the album. It's Chugtastic. It punches you in the nuts and makes you say, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" Kirk.
I don't think I can beat that with anything as succinct as that. Yeah, it's one of the standout songs. We all unanimously agreed it's a great song when we first heard the video single and we reacted to it and reviewed it on this channel. Yeah, I think Marcus really tries to push the higher end of his baritone vocals. He's not doing a tenor voice, but he's trying to go higher and succeeds in this. This one is just air guitar heaven for me. When you first buy a guitar and someone showed you like drop D tuning, And then you just on that open she's like dun 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 dun. This isn't in drop D, but it just reminded me of that exhilarating feeling when I first picked up a guitar and had heavy gain and was doing those downward palm muted techniques. But yeah, again, the songwriting standard's very high on this. They're not doing anything overly complex, which you don't need to do. There's nothing wrong with keeping it to verse, bridge, chorus, middle eight, guitar solo. If anything, the hard thing to do in metal and in heavier forms of rock is to use that standard template and to do it well. And this band have already shown that they've mastered that. Every single we've reviewed, we've enjoyed, haven't we? And this is a great song at track number 5, Terrorized. I'd be expecting to see this in the live set if they ever come over to England.
Okay. So next up, we have Smoke of Doom, which personally I think is a great song title. Personally, I think that's a great song name.
That's exactly what I put, Dave. Yeah.
It's just, there were some great song titles in this. Forever Merciless, Smoke of Doom, Into the Grave, and Floods of No Return. They're just great song titles. But Smoke of Doom was the second single that we saw on music video off of this particular album. Andy?
Was I in these Caregah video sessions? I don't remember any of them.
Yeah, you watched it. They were in a cabin. It was like they were in a log cabin thing. They had bottles of beer and cans and stuff dotted around and stuff.
Yeah, we compared it to Corrosion of Conformity, didn't we? I think.
Yeah.
Like you said, Dave, it's a great song title. That's exactly what I noted down. More of a sort of technical, intricate sort of main riff throughout this one. Again, sort of just varying it up a little bit for everybody, which sort of they sort of continue throughout the song. Slower tempo. You know, there's no prize for guessing what the song's about. I mean, if you listen to the intro, the sample, it's obvious what's going on there, which is kind of detracts me a little bit. But I put that aside, and again, another really good track on the album. Yeah, certainly. You know, the song matches the title. Put it that way. It's another banger.
Yeah. For me, I just wrote sludgy. It's got groove. It's got dirty stoner blues metal. Got guitar squeals in there. It's got aggression. It's got emotion and so much weight to it. I absolutely loved it. Simple as that. Kirk?
If you like this song, you should check out one of our local bands, Raise, because the guitar work on their album that came out this year is sensational. Very similar tone to Caregah as well. I think they'd make ideal touring partners because they're doing kind of like a metallic interpretation of grunge, aren't they, Raise? And they're adding a few deathcore elements in there. It's really interesting. And prog metal, whereas Caregah, they're taking hard rock and making it as heavy as possible, aren't they? It's just pure metal, this song. Mystical intro of semi-distorted guitars and a real like churning bass line at the beginning, and that just gives way to a colossal rhythmic pattern, doesn't it, of palm mutes. And again, Marcus is so confident in his vocal projections. I think we all commented last time, we do love that tongue-in-cheek moment where he almost introduces a breakdown where he just goes, fuck! And then this new riff comes in. It's not infantile. I think it's because there's so much adrenaline in it. That is a way of releasing your emotions and excitement, and it really suits the song. And then towards the end, it just accelerates into like metal madness, doesn't it? Johan is really just piling on the riffs. It's almost as if they repositioned the song again, like they did on track number 2, to just end as a festival of colossal heavy metal riffs. A great way to bring this one to a close. Great song title as well. One thing I did notice though, Kill Devil Hill, you reviewed their album, didn't you, Dave?
Yeah.
I think I hear them in this, but I've not heard that album. And when I say that, this is what I'd be expecting them to be doing if they were writing songs at the top of the game, writing songs like this, Smoke of Doom.
This is basically one of my comments in my summary is this is what Kill Devil Hill wanted their album to sound like. But didn't quite make it. So yeah, I understand that kind of thing because I heard a lot of the Kill Devil Hill similarities in the rhythm, but vocally, the vocal in there is just too single dimension in Kill Devil Hill. It just doesn't connect with you on that same emotional level, and I think that's what makes the big difference in the songs. And the riffs probably aren't as strong in Kill Devil Hill as they are in Caregah. Okay, Into the Grave. Andy.
Short, sharp shot, this one, isn't it? It's sort of less than 2 minutes, straight in, much faster tempo than the other tracks. Again, just throwing something different in there to sort of grab our attention.
Yep. Fair enough.
Yeah. Not a highlight, another good track on the album. Yeah, just something different for us to get our teeth into.
I mean, I'm going to read out exactly what I wrote because I don't know what I was writing. I wrote this yesterday when I was going through like the third listen through. So after the slow sludginess of Smoke of Doom, they just come out and slap you in the face with this 500-pound tuna that they call Into the Grave. I don't know where a 500-pound tuna came from, but apparently they slap you in the face with one. Maybe I was smoking some of the Smoke of the Doom. I don't know. It's to the point. It's as metal as it gets. It's a bits of groove, but let's just say it's under 2 minutes long, so you know what you're going to get, really, aren't you? Kirk.
Metallica in the 1990s. If it wasn't Metallica who'd written Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets and Justice for All, Load and Reload is just top quality hard rock, isn't it? The guitar playing is phenomenal on those two albums. And I always used to say that the difference between Metallica and Slayer is you listen to a Metallica album, you just think, does guitar music get any better than this? You listen to a Slayer album, you think, does metal get any better than this? So Metallica have got more dimensions, haven't they, to the music? This is almost like a downtuned version of what they were doing in the heavier moments on Load and Reload. And many bands were doing that well in the 90s. Your favorite, Corrosion of Conformity, did it even better than Metallica, didn't they? And I hear their influence on this music, and Entombed again. But yeah, there's some good headbanging intensity in this, but there's also a mischievous cameo of death metal vocals, only for one or two verses. So playful. I appreciate what Marcus is doing. I don't think he's ever showing off on this album, but he just seems to put in, I wouldn't say so many styles, but there's at least 4 or 5 personalities, would you say, Andy, in this album from Old Man?
Yeah, say, sort of key notes on several songs is different vocal delivery. Because you could quite easily, and we often do on albums, you can get sort of switched off and almost, and don't want to return to it. But if there's something that sort of adds that variation, be it musically or vocally, and Caregah on this album are doing both, I think it's a good thing to throw those elements in.
Okay, let's do the last track then. Floods of No Return, Andy.
Well, the time stamp on this one makes up for the last track. I think it's sort of 8 minutes plus, and it's a great album closer. It's as good as the other ones that I've mentioned as the highlights for me. There's a big sing-along chorus, which again is another element which we haven't seen throughout the album. That's my feel on that part of the song. Didn't like the nerdy jazz outro though, I must admit. But again, good way of closing a really good album.
Okay. For me, first of all, love the song title, Floods of No Return. I think that's just a great song title. I'm not too sure on the borrowing of the walk riff from Pantera. If it's a homage to the band, then I can accept that. But if hopefully the band acknowledge the fact that they've basically taken the walk riff and just used it in their song, because it's so close to it, without the tail off, without the I'm like, come on, guys, that is walk. Once you get past that riff, you get sucked into this really cool swing bounce beat that makes you just want to jump up and have a good fucking time, which is exactly what I did when I listened to this song. But initially, when that first riff comes in, I'm like, seriously, guys, really? Did you not, when you recorded this, go, this sounds very close to Walk? But Kirk.
Probably the one song that I find hardest to connect to on multiple listens. You're right about that Pantera walk riff. They've kind of rephrased it as like a 1970s guitar lick, haven't they? There's a real good transition to a swampy groove metal type beast. I noted around like 2 minutes and 40 seconds. The jazz outro, Andy, that took me by surprise as well. It almost seems irrelevant, but at the same time, I do gravitate towards that now when I'm listening to it. It's almost like they're having fun, saying, "Hey, we don't just play blues. Look, listen to these jazz chords." It's quite amusing the way they've done that. I don't really remember the chorus much to this song, which surprises me because Marcus stands out in most riffs in it. It just doesn't connect with me. I can't really put my finger on the pulse. It's not a disappointing way to end the album. I just can't really vibe with it. I don't have an explicable reason for that either.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, as always, we need to score it. And as we give our score, individual scores, we'll just give our kind of final summary at the same time, if that's okay. So we score it out of 4 different categories. It's either a bin it if it's a crap album, a trade it if it's probably okay, but just not for you, a stream it if you think it's a good album, or buy it if you think it's a great album. So, Andy, if you give us your final thoughts on the album and your score, please.
Okay. As I mentioned before, it is an album that you could introduce to your rock friends as a heavier gateway into this sort of music. Very well produced. Vocals are great. They're aggressive, but as we've all said, you can hear every word clearly enunciated. I'm not a big solo guys, you all know, but the solos that were there complemented the song really good. Catchy riffs, heavy songs, and I'd love to see these play live. Overall score, buy it.
Okay, so for me, I love the song titles. There's lots of power and aggression in the actual album without being too extreme or anything like that. So I like that. There's plenty of groove. These guys know how to chug. I love a good old chugging riff. They know how to put a good song together. There was very few, if any, like low points. There was a few bits where I wasn't as whelmed as I'd like to be. But generally, I thought the album was great. So for me, it is a buy it. Kirk?
Unanimous. I would buy this. It reminds me of, do you know when that band Power Trip released that album, 2017, what was it called? Nightmare Logic? And everyone just got behind it. It was basically just playing crossover thrash. They weren't doing anything different, but it sounded unique for that time. And we've all got varying tastes, haven't we, in rock and metal? And this seems to be the one band we can all agree on, no matter what the flavor of the month is in your Spotify library or however you consume music. This is just a band. You can just listen to this on repeat. And I think they get it just right because I think it's only 38 minutes, something like that.
Yeah,
perfect.
Like that.
It doesn't need another song, this album. They've got absolutely everything right. Great vocal performance. I can remember at least 10 riffs on this album. So they're definitely doing something right. Go out and buy this record. No matter what you're into, if you like heavy guitar music, this is definitely going to be right up your street.
Okay. So finally from me, Dave, it wasn't a shorter review.
No.
You know, I thought I didn't set myself a target of 3 times, and there was probably five or six times I've listened to it this week, and it's been a pleasure, you know, to pick out more elements, and it's just one to enjoy listening to, rather than being a task to review and sort of deliver for this channel. So, thank you for that.
And there are times when we get the albums to review, and they are a task.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why I mentioned it. Yeah, pleasure.
Okay, so Caregah and Osmium gets a buy it from the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. Now, if you like this video, please do like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you on the video sometime very soon. Take care.